everyone, this is Laura and I have my 10 cards 1 kit featuring the Love From Lizi December card kit for you here. Apologies that this video is so late. As you can kind of hear from my voice, I've had some sickness to deal with and a couple other things going on, but I'm not going to bore you with the details. The good news is I have my 10 cards here and I'm going to run you through the process. So the first thing that I did was I took all of the cardstock and I cut it down into card bases, and I used the matte mirror. Actually, I cut that into 4, so I would have 4 card panels. I love that matte mirror cardstock. I think it's beautiful. I did go ahead and add 2 additional pieces of cream coloured cardstock to my kit because I wanted to use a couple more cream card bases. I really liked how it looked with the colours that were in this kit. So you'll see that I do use 2 additional cream card bases towards the end of the video rather than the green that was included with the kit. But you know I didn't throw the green away. I still have it and I will definitely use it on another project. So this first card, really quick and easy. I cut down a panel to be slightly smaller than my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base, went ahead and stuck that down using my ATG. Then I added a strip of another cardstock, and then I actually used the back of one of these pieces and I die cut a circle, and it's got this really pretty pink and white polka dot. And then I've added these puffy stickers over the top. So we've got the bird and then the little with love and the butterfly up here. And of course, where those 2 pieces of paper met, I used to peel off. You gotta do it. So then I went in, added just a few more of these puffy stickers. I think I used almost all of them in this video. I really enjoyed these. They kind of remind me of the kind of stickers I would get when I was a kid. And yeah, they're just fun to have on a card. You know I love dimension, so it's nice to have some there. I made a big mess with my Nuvo drops, but no problem. I just went ahead and kind of scraped it away with my nail as best I could, kind of wiped it away with a cloth, and then just added it back in, and you wouldn't know the difference if I hadn't have left that in the video. And you can see I did it again. So no problem, just go ahead and clean that up before it dries. If you wait until it dries, you can kind of scrape it off with a craft knife, but I haven't had much success with that. So I prefer to do it this way and then set everything aside to dry. Okay, on to card 2. For this one, I'm using this beautiful, shiny butterfly patterned paper. I think it's really nice, this one. It's got a really nice level of shine to it. It's got nice colours to the shine. I'm kind of particular about shine and the colours that it gives off. It's kind of weird, I know, but there we go. And I used some of the lace kind of crocheted ribbon here. So the way I like to use it, and sometimes it kind of argues with me like it is right now, I stick a piece of double-sided sticky tape on the back, peel off the backing, and then just go ahead and place that behind my panel. I find it's easier to do it this way rather than working with like a wet glue that would seep through any of those kind of crocheted holes, I guess. I think it works better this way to have your adhesive on the back. So then I've got a gold circle that I cut out of the gold matte mirror. Again, love that matte mirror. I think it's really beautiful. And then I added the thank you puffy sticker, a rose, a flower. Not sure if it's a rose. There's a flower and then a little cluster of a flower and some leaves. And then I'm going ahead and adding a whole bunch of these gems. I really like these. They've got a lot of dimension to them. They've got a nice amount of shine to them, and they just really fill in that background. And you could definitely supplement them with some of the Nuvo drops as well. I think that would work really well for this kind of a card. So there was a whole bunch of dimension here when I tried to flip this piece over and add some glue. So I figured I'd go ahead and add my adhesive onto my card base, and it would make it a little bit easier, because if I tried to press down on that really kind of raised card panel or card front, I definitely would have had some issues there. So I covered my card base with adhesive and stuck this down, and that is card number 2 finished. So for card 3, I've got some gelatos. I think that's how you say it, gelatos, and these are kind of fun to work with. I hadn't used mine for a while. This one was dirty, so I had to kind of clean it off to one side. But essentially, I just kind of mushed down some colour, tried to get a mix of colour into each of the open spaces of this stencil, And let's talk about the stencil for a minute. I love how this stencil works. I love how it coordinates with the stamp set, how you've got different options to add just the bodies of the butterflies, or you can add the wing detail. You can leave it as is, as a small kind of background stencil. I really like how this works. So I chose to use gelatos through the stencil, and I blended those using a damp baby wipe. I'm not working on a watercolour cardstock, so I didn't want to add too much water to this, but I'm essentially just finger painting. I'm having a good time. I'm moving to a clean section of the baby wipe each time, or wet wipe. I don't know if baby wipe is universal. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments. In the same way as if I use kitchen roll, people are like, what? So I'm just moving to a clean area of the wet wipe each time I change colour, and just kind of blending those together and getting some really nice kind of soft colours here. I did get a little bit carried away and probably added a little bit too much water to this. It wouldn't be a problem if I'd have worked with watercolour paper or watercolour cardstock, but I was enjoying myself. I made sure to kind of clean that stencil whilst it was still in place, just because that adds like a final layer or level of blending to this piece. And then I trimmed it out and trimmed out a coordinating square that was just ever so slightly bigger than this piece. So for this one, I'm mounting the why do I keep forgetting the word square? I'm mounting the silver matte mirror onto the grey card base, and then I've got my ink blended panel, and then here I grabbed another strip of the silver matte mirror, and I really like this. It's almost like a Polaroid, but it's got that like separation in the middle, so it's got the square with the imagery, and then it's got this little section at the bottom, which again I had to use those puffy stickers. I loved them. So I added congratulations and then another one of the butterflies. So then I moved everything into my mini MISTI, and I lined up some of the stamps and just added in the wing detail with the bodies onto these pieces. As I said, you can just add the bodies individually. You don't have to add the wing detail, and you can have some fun with it as well, and you can kind of mix it up so you've got a really tiny body but with really huge wings, or vice versa. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, on to the next card. This is super simple. I was looking at the items included in the kit, and I was looking in particular at the buttons, and they kind of just accidentally fell onto my desk in this formation, and it made me smile. And it particularly made me smile because if you are familiar with Lizzie's Facebook group, which if you're not, there'll be a link in the description below, you have probably seen adorable cute pictures or quick images and kind of videos, what's wrong with me today? Little snips of her little boy who is adorable, and his nickname is Piggy. So I wanted to make a little piggy card here. Very, very easy, very fun to make. I would guarantee that if you've got kids, if you've got nieces and nephews, if you've got mini crafters that like to come and craft with you, they would have a lot of fun using up the buttons in this way. So I felt like if you stuck them at the top of a die cut circle, they worked really nicely as ears, and then if you put it the right way around, it worked really nicely as a little piggy nose. And I have a ton of googly eyes in a whole bunch of different sizes in my craft room. So I just grabbed some from my stash and I'll use those for the little piggy's eyes. This could not be easier to make, but it is so adorable. I decided to give my little piggy a little smile because he would be happy, I think. So I just grabbed a pen. This one had run out of ink, and then I just drew in a little line straight down from that heart and a little small smile. My art skills are questionable, but I just about managed to draw a straight line, somewhat straight line, and a somewhat imperfect curve that works as my smile. So then I grabbed one of the die cuts and I die cut the thank you sentiment from, again, that gold matte mirror cardstock. can't say enough about it. I'll try and stop saying how much I enjoy it, but it really is beautiful. I love that kind of muted shine as opposed to the true mirror. Don't get me wrong, still love my mirror, but this matte mirror I think is really interesting, and it kind of matches my nails. I'm just realising as I'm watching this back. So I stuck that down using some glue on the back, some tiny little dots of glue and my tweezers to help me hold it in place, and that card is finished. So for this card, I'd had so much fun with the buttons on the last card, I decided to just keep going. So I took a heart die cut from my stash, die cut from this plaid piece of paper, and then I'm just going to go ahead and outline that heart onto my background piece. So then I'm going to take some glue and I'm actually going to go ahead and cover this whole piece. I had to kind of do it in stages because I didn't want my glue to dry out completely. I tell a lie, I just smothered glue all over that whole thing. Maybe I came back to it as it was drying. But then I grabbed my buttons and I just worked away, kind of placing those inside this kind of frame. I did consider making this more complicated by trying to do a kind of an ombre, either with the size or the colours, so we'd maybe go from the larger hearts into the smaller hearts, or from the lighter colour to the darker colour, or vice versa, but I quickly realised that that was just not going to be a good idea. To try and kind of squeeze everything in and cover as much of this background as possible, I just went with what I had. I kind of pressed everything down, moved it around with my fingers, kind of tried to nestle everything in together as best I could. If you were to recreate this and you were worried about any of the adhesive kind of still being shown, you could definitely throw some glitter on this and just let that glitter stick wherever there is glue available, in the background in between each of the hearts. Or if you wanted something a little bit more subtle, you could use maybe your anti-static powder tool once this had dried and just kind of pounce your anti-static tool over the top of this and allow that powder to stick wherever there's any sticky residue remaining. So it actually didn't take too long to do this, and I think it looks really nice. Again, I think any kind of button craft is always fun with kids. I think if you can get a die cut shape and then fill a background with a whole bunch of buttons, it's really easy to do with a mini crafter. They tend to enjoy working with buttons. I have the mentality of a small child, and I certainly enjoyed this. So I think if you are looking for a way to use up your buttons on a project like this, I think it's a really fun idea to get a little one involved and let them kind of place some of the buttons down, and then once you're happy with everything and everything's kind of stuck in place, all you need is a double layer of foam tape all over the top panel, and then that will lift it up just enough off the card base so you can see everything kind of through it and there's no interference with any of those button pieces. So that was what I did. I went ahead, I actually only used one layer here, I didn't even need two. So then once I was happy with that, I took another die cut circle. Once I had my circle dies out, I think I just kind of went with it and used them on a few of these cards, and I inked up this beautiful sentiment. The sentiments from this kit are adorable. I really like the style of them. I like the kind of, it's not so much the font, it's more the way that they're laid out. I think they look really nice. So I took this one here, Live, Laugh, Love, and just attached that to one of the small doily pieces, and then added adhesive just in the middle there so it didn't poke through any of the open areas, and pressed that down kind of in the corner. So we've got like two focal elements in opposite corners on the card, and then grabbed some of my scissors and just trimmed away some of the excess. And then again, that is another card finished. Okay, so for this one, I wanted to make my own background paper. I think I just wanted to really showcase how fun the embossing powder is. So I wanted something that had some extremely bold colour in the background and was very kind of bright and fun, and I just felt like it would work well, and I was not disappointed. So I grabbed some of these are actually the Catherine Puller mini ink cubes, and I'm just swiping those across the background. You could use whatever inks that you have. If you wanted to be a little more precise with this, you could use some masking paper. and then do some ink blending, maybe with your distress inks or your oxides, or you could just grab a piece of pattern paper that's got really nice bold colours. So once I was happy with the background, I kind of just went over it a few times to help those colours blend, and then I helped it along with the drying process with heat setting, and then used my anti-static powder tool. So I inked up the sentiment first and stamped it somewhat centrally using one of the mini Catherine Puller inks, and I used Have a Beautiful Day this time. So then I grabbed a whole bunch of the butterfly stamps and I inked those up with some Versamark ink, which is just going to allow me to have that embossing powder stick to this sticky ink. It will also stick to my sentiment, the Have a Beautiful Day, because I stamped that so recently and it will still be wet. The particular type of ink formulation in those mini cubes that I've used takes a while to dry, so it will still be wet, but that's okay. I'm using this embossing powder from the kit, and it's not opaque, so it will allow some of the colour to come through. It will add kind of a pearly shine. It's really beautiful. I'm really pleased with how this looked. So I poured this all over the background. I kind of dumped out the whole pot, but that's fine because you can go ahead and funnel anything that drops off your card back into the pot. And then I used my heat gun to heat set this, and I made sure to let my heat gun get good and hot before I brought it to the paper. It had already warped somewhat because I'd used my heat tool to help the drying process of that inked background. That was just because I was trying to create everything in one go rather than leaving this to one side to dry. So you can see as that embossing powder kind of melts and becomes permanent and sticks in place on your card, it loses that powdery finish and just becomes super glossy, and the shine is just beautiful. And the way that it changes through each of the different colours I think is really stunning, and that was kind of what I was trying to show with this card, kind of how it looks at the top there with the more yellow compared to at the bottom, and how different it is on top of each of those pieces. I think people are going to have a lot of fun playing with this, and I think it would be really nice actually just to cover an entire inked background, maybe like a distress ink blended background, and then just cover the whole thing in this embossing powder and melt it, just to give it that really fun shine. And that's probably something that I'll end up trying also. Okay, so that card is finished. So for this one, I considered making a canvas instead of a card because I was in the mood to do something a little bit more mixed media. And there was a couple of things that inspired it. One was this piece of paper here, and it's got kind of striped patterns of other pieces of patterned paper. You'll know the one when you pick it out of your kit, or if you see me flick through it in my unboxing video. But I actually went ahead and cut this down to size, and then I tore it so I could have these little strips and I could stick them down with a small gap in between each of them, just to give it more of a distressed feel. Mixed media is something I love. I love watching Vicky Pap's videos. I'm not going to pronounce her whole surname because I'll butcher it, so she is Vicky Pap. And I think she does some beautiful things with her art journaling, and I definitely aspire to be able to do that. And this is my kind of safe way of giving this a try on a card. It feels more familiar to me, and I really like how this turned out. So I started off, as I said, by tearing up this piece of pattern paper and sticking that down all over the base, and then I brought in some texture paste in gold pearl and just a stencil that I had, and kind of popped it around the card, tried to be kind of arty with it, added some little splodges here and there, and it added some dimension. And then I used the negative space of one of the earlier cards, the one where we had all of the buttons, and I used the heart from that. And then I grabbed one of my ink cubes, and I was super lazy and didn't even get a blending sponge or anything like that. And I just placed these kind of splodges all around the card and just inked directly through the stencil using a corner of the ink pad, just to add a little bit of colour and that kind of loose mixed media vibe that I was trying to achieve, which is outside of my comfort zone, but I really like how it looks, and I definitely wanted to give it a try. So this is the other item that inspired me to do my fake canvas, and it was these flowers. I went ahead and cut off the stems and then used 3 of the larger flowers and 2 of the smaller flowers on the card base. And I just kind of placed those where I thought I wanted them, and then remembered to do my stamping, which was an improvement for me. I often forget and I add a whole bunch of dimension, and then I can't use my MISTI, which I do like to use for most of my stamping. But I went ahead and stamped "Have a Beautiful Day," and then I just grabbed some liquid glue from my stash. I believe this is Gina K Connect glue, and added the adhesive onto the back of these 3D flowers, and just kind of arranged those as I had planned when I laid everything out for the sentiment piece. So I think as far as mixed media goes, I'm pleased with how this turned out. I think somebody a little bit more mixed media savvy would have added some more layers and some more fun. Oh, I did add some more. I added some pearls. But I'm really pleased with how this turned out, and I would definitely encourage you, if you have got something that you admire watching or looking at on Pinterest, and it's a style that you've never tried, definitely give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? So there we have it. I'm really pleased with how this one turned out, and it was fun to try something a little bit different for me. Okay, for the next card, I'm bringing back the Stencil, and I'm going to use my gelatos again because I already had them on my desk and they were really fun to play with for that first card. This time I'm using them slightly differently. I just rubbed some of that gelato straight onto my craft desk and then picked it up again with a baby wipe or a wet wipe and just used my finger to blend through the stencil. This time I'm just using one of the butterflies, and I'm just going to stamp one of the coordinating bodies right in the centre in a coordinating colour. And I think it looks really pretty this way, just with that single butterfly and then the coordinating body. And then we've got the sentiment, which is perfect. So this is "Spread More Love." And then I just had to bring out some more of the peel-offs and just lay those down the side of this piece. I had stamped and inked slightly off center. Let's pretend that that was part of my design. So to combat that, I just added some detail over on the left-hand side to try and kind of center everything up. So for this one, I'm going back to the grey card base and coordinating again with that matte mirror silver. So I cut a piece to be slightly smaller than the card base and layered that up, and then again cut a piece of pattern paper to be slightly smaller again, and this time it's the blue and white polka dot. And then I added another layer of the matte mirror. I really liked how this one turned out with all of the layers. I had actually intended to create all of my layers before attaching to the card base and wrapping some ribbon around it, but I forgot and got carried away and attached it all to the card base. But I think it looks really nice as is, and perhaps with the ribbon it would have been too much anyway, so maybe it was a good thing. So then finally I added my stamped and ink blended or gelato blended butterfly panel, and this card is finished. Okay, so we're down to, I believe, the final 2 cards, and this is where I brought in my additional cream coloured card bases. Totally optional, there is definitely enough to work with in the kit. I just wanted to use more of the cream tones, so I thought it worked best with a cream card base. So for this one, I've got my panel in the background, which is slightly smaller than the card base, and then I have this pattern piece here and then a strip to lay on top. I think this is a fun design for using up scraps. I definitely wasn't at the point of using my kit where I needed to consider using up scraps, but I just think this is a really nice layout in terms of a card design. It'd been a while since I'd used a puffy sticker, so I brought them back out and I added a couple of sentiments. So I've got "Thinking of You" and then "On Your Special Day," and then I just filled in with a few more of those flower puffy stickers. So again, really simple to create, but I think the patterned paper and those stickers really sell this and it looks beautiful. And for my final card, again, I've used a heart die cut. and I've created a window in a stamped panel and then added some acetate because I am making a shaker card. Here I have a strip of one of the other pattern papers, and I just cut that down so I've got one of these cute little panels, and then I'm going to outline it in some more of this crocheted ribbon, which I think is just stunning. I definitely didn't use enough of this in this video, and I'm going to have to come back and make some more cards using up that ribbon because it's beautiful. So I added adhesive to the back of my card panel and then just wrapped this round and trimmed away the excess, and I made sure to use the same ribbon on the top and the bottom, but I actually changed the orientation. So where I have kind of the frills, the scallops, we'll go with scallops, pointing downwards at the bottom, I've got them kind of pointing up towards the top on the top piece. So then I added 2 layers of foam tape, made sure that everything was sealed up really nicely around that heart window so none of my sequins would fly out the side of this card. And then I'll go ahead and pour a sizable amount of the sequins kind of into the top centre of the card where that heart window will be. Made sure to keep them all in there and then place this over the top. I was looking at that and I was thinking that is not enough sequins. I'm sure I added more. So there we go. I added a few more and then placed this down over the top. Made sure to get it lined up nice and straight and then pressed all around those edges to seal it perfectly in place so nothing flies out. There's something about a shaker card, it doesn't matter how many times I make them, it's still fun to shake a shaker card, and I think people who receive them feel the same way as well. So then I used my happy birthday and this little birdie sticker and finished it off with these 2 little hearts. And that is it for my 10 cards. So we'll do a quick recap and I'll show them all to you. Again, sincere apologies for being a little bit AWOL recently. As I say, I've had a few things going on. I've had some, anyway. It is what it is. I apologise. That this video is late. I do know that any of the subscribers to the kits will have received their kits by now, so hopefully you'll be able to use this video for some inspiration and some ideas of what you can create. If you are new to Love From Lizi or new to my channel, then do go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've liked the video, then you can let me know by hitting the like button, and I'd love to hear from you in the comment section as well. There are quite a few of you who comment on all of my videos, and I always love to see your names pop up. I love to talk with new people in the comment section, so do feel free to leave a comment and say hello, and I hope to see you all again soon in another video. So thanks so much for watching. On screen right now there are a couple more videos that I think you might enjoy. You can go ahead and click on the thumbnails to go straight through to those videos, or you can click on the logo on screen right now to subscribe to this channel. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.